Your central character, played by Christian Bale, he has insomnia, and in the film he talks about he hasn't slept for a year. Can that really happen? Can you go without sleeping for a year? And
No, you can't actually physically go a year without sleeping, but you can believe that you haven't slept in a year, and there are many people who claim they haven't slept in more than in years, who've never slept. In fact, you do. You're at certain points, your brain literally just has to shut down to recharge itself. But what happens with people with severe sleep deprivation is they're not aware of that process happening. So they can go into the REM cycle and not even be conscious of it in some ways, and then kind of wake up and not realize that they just had they were just asleep. They're called micro sleeps. In fact, they can even be doing normal everyday activities, and their brain can still be sort of shut down. And that really informed, I think, the structure of the movie, which is about a guy who, by the end, we realize anyhow, is kind of living in a part of the time in a delusional world that he's created, a dreamlike world, you could say. And the fact that he hasn't slept in a year, or claims he hasn't slept in a year, is sort of the explanation for why that might be. So yeah, we did, and that's one of the reasons in the movie. That's what I loved about the script too. Is as you were reading it, you were never sure if this was something that was happening literally in Trevor Reznik's world, or if it was something that was in his imagination. There was no demarcation between those things. They just seamlessly went into the next, which just creates a really kind of a nightmarish vibe throughout the whole story. And that we wanted to capture that in the movie. I wanted that same feeling, that unsettling feeling of not really being sure what's real and what's not.
I like to, once again, kudos to the cinematographer.
Yeah.
And, the way that some of the shots, looking at the sky, looking at the landscape, and also the machine factory.
Well, that was in the script, the descriptions of this infernal kind of clanking machine shop. Right off the top, you just have these visions of this place. It's almost like a purgatory,
Mm-hmm.
And in some respects, that's kind of the metaphor of this guy's life. He works in this brutal kind of factory, strapped to his machine, doing this monotonous, brutal work. We realize in some ways it's almost like he's paying penance for some crime he doesn't even realize he's committed. And that was an interesting theme in the story, but from a visual angle, it was also gave me a chance to create this world. In fact, that machine shop in the movie, it looks sort of it looks like some turn of the century kind of thing, you know what I mean? But it's a real place in Barcelona where we shot the film. I don't think if we had shot it here in LA, we would have been able to find a place that looks quite like that.
Well, another thing is, when you see the film, you can't really tell where it is. I mean, I just thought it's some city in LA,
Yeah.
That must have been challenging as well.
Well, it worked. I mean, originally we wanted to shoot it in LA because Scott's script was specifically set here in Los Angeles, but like I said, we couldn't find the financing here, so we ended up having to go overseas to Barcelona to shoot it. This company said, "We'll make your movie, but the condition is you got to shoot it here in Barcelona." And my initial reaction was like, "How are we going to do that? I mean, how are we going to make Barcelona into Orange County or something?" But oddly enough, you go anywhere in the world now, you get outside of the main cities, and you find these industrial zones, and they look like they could be anywhere in America. So we ended up creating our own sort of version of the United States in Barcelona, and it becomes a very generic, unspecific version of America. And I think that works it actually ended up working to our advantage, because I think it creates this sense of alienation, like you're not really sure where you are. There's nothing specific that you can cling on to give you a sense of place. It also gives the movie and the story a bit of a timeless quality. You don't see laptops and cell phones and the Starbucks in every shot, you know what I mean? We stripped out all those little cultural indicators and kept it very generic. That was part of the production design that we were going for. Because when I read the script as well, the other thing I loved about it was it felt like a parable. It felt like some kind of a timeless parable about a man and his guilty conscience, something that Kafka might have written. And I didn't want to make it feel. I didn't want the story to feel too contemporary and hip. I wanted it to have a timeless quality to it, you know. So all those the production design went in that direction, and the music, which was the score, is very much of a throwback to an earlier kind of score, like, you know, a Bernard Herrmann type score from the 40s and 50s, but set against a story which isn't like set in that time period. So it creates a strange dissonance, I think.
So what were the challenges that ultimately went in making this film?
It wasn't easy making a film, essentially an American film, American story over in Spain. You know, I don't speak any Spanish, which created some, you know, difficulties. It was not an easy shoot. I mean, we shot during one of the hottest summers on record in Spain, 101, 102 degrees every day. We couldn't afford air conditioning.
People are getting woozy, and
we actually shot in the Barcelona sewer tunnels, which are.
Oh yeah, and Christian Bale actually didn't wear boots.
Yeah, he decided just to be into the moment.
Not only did he lose weight, but he got dysentery or something.
I didn't quite go that far.
Or some kind of like bacterial thing going. Well, he didn't, but he could have.
He could have. Yeah, it was pretty grim down there.
He's
but
giving it up for his art, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I physically wasn't a very pleasant experience for me. I ripped a tendon about 2 weeks before I started shooting. I was directing much of the movie from crutches, and I get off my crutches and my back goes out like the next day. So now I'm flat out on my back, horizontally on a gurney, directing the film. So, you know, it was a bit of a trial by fire process for me. But every time I wanted to complain, I would look over and I'd see Christian on the sidelines, like sitting in his chair, just trying to store up energy reserves for the next take. And I'd be like, look, I can't possibly complain. I mean, this guy's he went so far beyond what I would have done for a movie.
What did you like best about working on this film, The Machinist?
I think it was just the chance to work in this kind of genre that. I mean, my other film prior to this, Session 9, was also a spooky, dark movie, but it was more of a straightforward horror picture. But this was more of a chance to do this kind of noirish, atmospheric kind of character study, and to, you know, really pull out all the tools that a director has, the music, the compositions, the look. It's a very, I mean, I think in some respects, Christian's he is the draw, but it's also a very directorial type picture in the sense that there's a real specific vision that I tried to create for this movie, a specific look, a feel, an atmosphere, a tone. And that was a challenge, but also one of the most interesting parts of the process. That's what any director wants. You want to be able to weave together a totally unique kind of universe for each story that you tell. And in this one, because of the great script and the great actors I was working with, the great crew, I was able, I think, to have that opportunity.
How did it start out for you? Did you always want to be a filmmaker?
No, I never really had some kind of career agenda. It was more I kind of stumbled into it, starting out as I wanted to get into ethnographic films, like documentaries. That was I studied anthropology in college. And somehow, I don't know how, but somehow that kind of ended up with me working as an editor on documentaries, and then that started me working as an editor on features, and eventually, you know, as you work, if you cut enough films, you start to realize, I can do this, and I want to tell my own story. So I decided, you know, to write my own script and cobble together enough money to make my first true independent film, which was a total guerrilla style, you know, like type low budget movie called The Darien Gap, which went to Sundance in '96, and that going to that festival gave me, you know, enough of a push to make my second film, Next Stop Wonderland, which ended up getting bought by Miramax at Sundance, and, you know, one thing leads to the next, and you just sort of, I've been lucky to be able to continue to be making films, even though the films I've made have all been rather, you know, they're small independent movies.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, we've been talking with Brett Anderson. He's the director of The Machinist, and best of luck with your future projects.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Just a reminder, you can hear Center Stage live every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on KXLU Los Angeles, also streaming on the net at www.kxlu.com. Until next time, this is Mark Gordon, and I'll see you center stage.